Friday the 13th, and I thought it would be fun to review a movie starring the most prolific of the killers from the Friday the 13th franchise, Jason Voorhees. So over on my Twitter page, you can see the link down below. I put a poll up with 4 of the most fun movies starring Jason Voorhees, and you guys picked for me to review Freddy vs. Jason. So I thought that was a great fun pick. For me growing up, Freddy and Jason were the 2 icons of horror. I don't know if it was just where I grew up or it was cable stations we had, but I didn't hear a lot about the Halloween franchise. I didn't hear a lot about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is funny because I live in Texas and grew up in the Austin area where Texas Chainsaw Massacre was filmed. But I didn't hear a lot about them. A little bit of Child's Play, but really it was Freddy and it was Jason. And late at night on cable, sometimes when my mom didn't know I was still awake, I'd watch a Friday the 13th movie or I'd watch a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Those were the 2 icons for me. But I never saw horror movies growing up like in the theaters or anything like that. My family didn't watch them. They weren't like introducing them to me. So when Freddy vs. Jason came out, it was like one of the very first horror movies I saw. I was like, I'm going to see that one in the theater. That looks awesome. I'm going to be there. So I was there opening night at an Alamo Drafthouse here in Austin. So I have very fond memories of when Freddy vs. Jason first came out. So I'm very excited to talk about this one. Now, before I tell you my thoughts on the movie, go ahead and tell me down below in the comment section, what did you think about Freddy vs. Jason? Is it a great combination of 2 franchises with a clever way to bring them together? Is it just a mess that kind of ruins both franchises? Does it go too far? Is it perfectly fun? Is it guilty pleasure? Let me know your thoughts on it down below. Also, this video is brought to you by my supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names down below. If you don't know what Patreon is, essentially, if you enjoy my content and want to help directly financially support this channel so I continue doing what I'm doing and put more time into the channel and kind of expand some of the content that I create, you can head on over there. There's several different tiers of support over there, different benefits that come with each one. I do some behind the scenes stuff, exclusive reviews, exclusive rankings. I do audio versions of some of my longer content over there, and sometimes they get input into what videos I do over on my channel. Just a few days ago, I reviewed the movie The Shadow, per the request of one of my regular Patreon supporters. This video in particular is brought to you by Kelly Marie Farrell. She's been a long-time supporter over on Patreon, so big shout out to her. With that said, let's get started talking about this movie, and we'll kick it off talking about the good. And what I love about this movie is they found a way to actually legitimately bring these 2 franchises together in a way that respects the canon for the most part of both franchises, that's a little bit clever and plays into the rules of things. So in particular, the idea of Freddy Krueger getting his strength from the fear of the children in the community, it plays into the idea that the adults of the community have had a conspiracy to kind of hide the name so no one's afraid of him, so he loses his power. Freddy, aware of this, knows that he needs to do something so he can come back and start killing people again. So he recruits Jason, works inside of his mind and his dreaming mind to like bring him back from the dead so he can kill people on Elm Street so people think that it's Freddy. That's really clever. That's a very smart way to bring these franchises together that makes sense, that honors the legacy of both franchises and sets up a scenario where believably they would come together. It doesn't come off like fan fiction. That's the fear when you do a movie like this that's bringing 2 franchises that are kind of really different from one another together into one, that'll just feel like something that some fans were just threw some schlock together. Ronny Yu and the writing team on this one, they came up with an idea that really honors the mythology that came beforehand. And also what they managed to do is find a way to incorporate the horror genre of both of the films. Once again, they're very different. Freddy Krueger deals in dreams. He torments people inside their minds. So there's creativity and all sorts of wacky insanity to it. There's a little bit of wisecracking to it. And Jason, silent slasher. He just shows up behind you, off with your head, through the gut, impales you. And so they're very different styles, and the movie finds a way to kind of transition back and forth between both of them. And at times, it plays into the idea of someone's dreaming, and are they safe, are they in danger? And then it ties directly then into a Jason attack. And so both of them kind of tie into it really well, and you get a lot of back and forth action through all of that. And I think that gives a nice diversity to it. It also gives a unique vibe to the movie in that it's not just kind of one subgenre of the slasher genre itself. No, it kind of goes in different directions and ties into different types of things. From there, well, it's a slasher movie, and the body count's pretty high here because kicking it off, because you've got to have both Jason and Freddy have plenty of people to kill. And so just they're going back and forth, and even tying into the plot of it, one of the reasons that Jason and Freddy get into it is Freddy's getting kind of mad because Jason's getting a little bit too overzealous in his killing. Well, if you're watching a slasher movie and one of the problems is one of the slashers is killing too many people, that means we got a lot of action going on in this movie. And that's just in the first 2/3. So the body count is largely in the first 2/3 of the movie, because the final third is just the back and forth between our two main antagonists going at each other. So we'll start talking about that one. And once again, what the movie did well is it found a way to play into each of their genres. So Freddy being the dream killer, they found a way in the plot, so we're going into Jason's head and Freddy's tormenting Jason in his dreams, and so you get all the fun of being in a world where Freddy has all of his powers and arms can be cut off and they come back and throw people all around, and the insanity that comes about from the simple fact that you're in a dream. And then I also find a way to pull it out, and we're out at Camp Crystal Lake duking it out in real life with blades, machetes, all that fun stuff happening, which makes for a very unique, interesting slasher movie that's a ton of fun to watch. From there, let's talk about the cast of the movie. And really, when I say the cast, I mean the standout star of this movie is Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. I haven't watched a Nightmare on Elm Street movie in several years. I've watched almost all the almost all of the Friday the 13th movies within the last year, but I haven't watched a Nightmare on Elm Street movie in, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, I think, maybe even more than that. And so this was kind of like reminding me just how creepy Freddy Krueger can be, and how he really is the most kind of likable serial killer, just totally disturbing, creepy, gets under your skin while being like funny and likable. It makes for just a disturbing mix. And I've forgotten just how funny he can be, and the quips, and at the same time, just so unsettling. I'd forgotten that my wife is totally creeped out by Freddy Krueger. I was going to try and force her to watch this one with me, because she almost never watches movies like this, so I thought, hey, this would be fun. I'd get her kind of take on the movie. And I was so glad I didn't do that. That would have been because this movie was so disturbing right out of the gate, going into how creepy he is going after children. Just so gross. And they just kind of give him so many moments to shine in all the different realms of Freddy Krueger in this movie. From there, I mean, it's a slasher movie, so most of the regular characters are just there to die. But there's a few standouts. You got like Jason Ritter in there, who's a legitimate actor who's been on television for all, ever since this movie came out. He's been showing up in TV shows left and right. He's the son of John Ritter, and so he's got a great pedigree behind him. And so he brings a little bit more to the role than some other people that are typically in these types of movies. As for Jason, he's very imposing and terrifying as you want Jason to be. I'm not one to really review Jason actors, because just the inherent nature of the character, I don't really understand people like Kane Hodder's the best. Like he's a guy in a hockey mask that just shows up and stabs people. I don't understand evaluating the acting of that. Each one of them have done a nice job. The guy that does it in this one, that I think he's the only one this is the only movie that he was in, I think. And I thought he did a good job being a very imposing, terrifying guy, and a nice foil to Freddy that also was able to kill a whole bunch of teenagers. For me, this movie does exactly what it's supposed to do. It delivers all of the kills, fun, excitement, and the story that makes sense to bring these characters together. So it delivers what it wanted. But let's start moving on to the mixed aspects of this movie. The only thing that comes to mind for me really is the conclusion. I'll say this. I liked the way that this movie ended. I won't tell you what it is, just in case you haven't seen it. I liked the way this movie ended. I thought it was a satisfactory conclusion to the film. I've heard a lot of people say they don't like the end of this movie. So I mentioned it as a mixed because it's something that people have had mixed reactions to. I thought it was satisfactory Many did not. From there, let's move on to the negatives on this one. The big one that comes to mind is this movie actually has too much plot. And what I mean by that is there's so much backstory as they're trying to explain the world that has led to this place where Freddy isn't remembered anymore, and we have to bring Jason into it. And in particular, the nature of this girl whose boyfriend disappeared and her mother was killed or died in a car accident or something happened and there's a controversy and there's a cover-up and we don't know exactly what happened and there's mystery surrounding that. And there's so much backstory on some of this stuff that it gets so convoluted in the mix of things. You go, maybe they should have simplified this just a little bit more, because we're spending way too much time talking about murders and deaths that happened 4 years ago than the stuff that's happening right now that's much more interesting. Also, this another negative on this one, I felt some of the Jason kills and the Freddy kills could have been a little bit more creative. If you're going to bring these two characters together, and you got Ronny Yu, who's got creativity, he's got a visual flair, he certainly brings an energy to things. It felt like there was an awful lot of, just stabbing people and off with the head type stuff, as opposed to more interesting things that you can do, especially with Freddy, but even with Jason, they could have had a little bit more than just that type of stuff going on. But that's a fairly minor thing because there was so many kills, so much action in the movie that I don't want to complain too much about little things like that one. Final complaint on this one is that, well, in the big picture, brought the two franchises together nicely. On the particulars, it seemed like they were cheating points when they needed to kind of smooth things over to move the plot along. So there's a little bit of cheating I felt rewatching it last night. But overall, I don't really care about the negatives and mixed stuff on this one. This movie delivers what I want out of a movie like this. I'm not looking for this movie to be Shakespeare, amazing cinema. This is a fun slasher movie that's creepy with Freddy Krueger, and he gets under your skin, and you get to see a bunch of people killed in fun ways at times, and then you get to see these two icons duke it out in a setting that makes sense for them to duke it out. So I'm going to give this one a solid B on an entertainment level. This one is a 7.5 for me. Very entertaining movie. So that's my take on the movie. How about you? Tell me down below in the comments section. Also, what's your favorite of the Friday the 13th or Jason Voorhees movies? Love to hear your take on that one. If you enjoy my channel, please consider supporting me over on Patreon and kind of helping me to continue doing what I'm doing here. And if you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos. But the key thing is I don't want to just talk about movies, I want to talk about movies with you. So join me down in the comment section. Let's have a lively discussion. And as always, thank you for watching.